This episode of Author Stories is brought to you by the Writing Mastery Academy. Founded by Jessica Brody, author of the best-selling plotting guide, Save the Cat Writes a Novel. The Writing Mastery Academy features online, on-demand writing courses, including the official Save the Cat Writes a Novel companion course, novel fast drafting, crafting dynamic characters, and productivity hacks for writers, to name just a few, plus monthly live webinars on various writing topics. Go to jessicabrody.com/Hank to learn more and get your first month of unlimited access to all the content for just $6. That's right, just $6. jessicabrody.com/Hank. You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
JT Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Ford,
Corey Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mom,
Ernest Blind, Jim Butcher,
Charlene Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is... Thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm super excited to have Joshilyn Jackson back on the show with me today. We're talking about her brand new book. It's out everywhere now. When you're hearing this, it's called Mother May I? And I'll tell you what, if you loved the book that she had out last year, you are absolutely going to go crazy over this book. It is so much fun, and will leave you sleeping with one eye open. Let's just put it that way. Welcome back to the show, Joshilyn.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Hank.
I'm excited to have you. Joshilyn, when we talked last year, I don't think we really kind of knew what we were in for with everything that 2020 turned out to be. And, hopefully now that we're past the first quarter of 2021, and there are lots of indicators that life is getting better for a lot of people, and let's hope so. Let's hope that keeps trending in a positive direction. But what did last year mean for you as a creative person? I've been getting to ask people, what a global pandemic and lockdowns and all of that have meant for their creative process. And writers tend to spend a lot of time alone anyway, but how did that affect you?
Yeah, I think less than it affected a lot of people. It helps. I think it helps to be introverted. It helps that I was used to working from home anyway. And writing wise, creativity wise, it was to work on the new book that I'm writing now was such an escape that I loved it. It affected me honestly more as a reader. Like, I had a very hard time holding concentration on a lot of books. And I ended up just like reading almost nothing but feminist horror, which for some reason I would just love and read, and that would work for me. So I've read so much gothic novels and feminist horror in the last year. I don't know why I found that so comforting.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That is so funny. So, with the way publishing generally works, you may have been finished with a book and it off your desk for, the better part of a year before it actually comes out. So Mother May I is the new book. That's out everywhere now. At what point were you with this book last year when all of that started happening?
It was turned in. It was turned in and done. I was in edits before anything. Yeah. So, I mean,
Gotcha.
Yeah. I turn in usually at least a year. They do a long marketing tail for me. So at least a year before it comes out. So no, I had no idea. And, my husband and our daughter was about ready to go off to college, and we moved into a condominium because we were going to travel more.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny.
And she ended up taking a gap year, and we're still living with her in the condo. We traveled we would walk to the cemetery with the dog every day. That was our travel.
And you're looking around at each other going, why did we downsize now? Why did we
Yeah.
take now? It's so funny. It's so funny. Well, I, last year we talked about Never Have I Ever, and what a fantastic book that is, and what a great book that was to have last year. But when you look back on your previous books, because before Never Have I Ever, never, my tongue's not
Never
going to
have.
work today. Never have I ever.
Yeah, I
I
was
think
writing
you
Southern fiction.
yeah, you had published like 8 novels before that book. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
You
All Southern fiction, like family drama kind of stuff. And now I'm writing more domestic suspense, thriller kind of stuff.
that was going to be my question, is why the shift of gears there from Southern fiction, family stories to thrillers? What precipitated that choice?
Well, honestly, it was not a choice. I started writing Never Have I Ever and realized that the book was different from my other books. So I think part of it was that, like, if you look at my first 8 novels, even though they don't have the same kind of vroom arc, there's always a murder mystery or the engine of a thriller at work in them. I think I was always kind of a frustrated thriller writer, but I am very deeply Southern, and I'm always worried you might not think I'm nice. I want you to think I'm real nice. I'm not real nice, Hank. But I want you to think I am pathologically Southern. So I think that part of it was just getting older and my give a crapper broke. I just don't have any craps left to give, and I don't feel like I have to like be that nice. And the other thing is, like, I really believe my books haven't changed that much. Like, thematically, I'm still writing about all the things that have driven me as a writer for the last 15 years. It really is just the pacing and the engine that have changed. And there was always a murder story going on in my little family dramas. I've just moved that front and center. So if I think people who like my thrillers might like my older books if they are not looking for that adrenaline rush, and people who liked my older, like, I've most of my readers have come with me, and then I've also kind of added thriller readers, so that's been great.
Well, looking at your back catalog, and Almost Sisters was the book that came out before Never Have I Ever. Is that right?
Yes.
You can definitely see the trajectory. You can, in Almost Sisters, you can feel the ramp up if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, in Almost Sisters, there's a murder mystery that goes all the way back to the Civil War. Like, you
Right.
learn the history of this town, and one of the things that happens in that book is that she solves a family mystery that has been percolating literally since the Civil War. Um, so you can see the seeds of what the writer I was going to become. When I started writing Never Have I Ever, though, just because the engine felt so different, I I was like, I got about a third of the way into it, and I was like, oh my Lanta, this is a thriller. And I was very anxious about it because I was out of contract. I had just turned in The Almost Sisters, which was my last book on that contract, and my publishing house, whom I loved and I wanted to stay with, had made me a really nice offer for my next 2 books. And I went to my agent and I was like, we can't take this offer because the contract was like 2 more Joshilyn Jackson books. And everybody knows what that means at my publishing house. And I was like, I can't accept this contract and turn this book in. And so my agent was like, Joshilyn, you're so dramatic. Send me the chapters. So I sent her like the first 5 chapters, and she called me back and she's like, oh my God, you're right. This is a different genre. You are writing domestic suspense, baby. I'm like, I know. So she was like, I do not show my drafts to my editor, Hank, ever. She's like, you've got to. We've got to send this to Emily. We can't take the contract. So we sent it to Emily, which luckily my editor, she's also like Karen Slaughter's editor. Like, this is a person who is
Yeah.
not going to be thrown by a little thriller. So we sent it to her and we're like, hey, so I'm kind of doing this now. And they loved it. They came back with a better offer.
Oh, wow.
So we were like, great, if you guys are on board with this shot. Like, it was really affirming and made me feel really confident about making the change to have my publishing house read the first, third of the book and get so on board. That felt really good.
So, how does it affect a writer that is well established? Because you've got 8 novels out. This you're not new at this by any stretch of the imagination. But going a little different genre and the tone being a little different in the book, did it feel like starting over again, or like how does
it felt like a refresh. It felt
Yeah.
very reinvigorating, like maybe, and also like just to be, I think that if you're a writer, you're trying to say something, right?
Yeah.
And you either say the thing and you're done, or you just keep trying to say it a little bit better. And I really believe that with the Almost Sisters, I said something I'd been trying to say as well as I can say it. Maybe not as well as it can be said, but as well as I can say it. And like, I felt like I'm done with, it felt like something closing, like I'm finished with that. And then something new kind of opened up and I walked toward it. So it's been really reinvigorating and exciting for me. It's refreshed work in some really fun ways. And I'm having, these books are a little more commercial. They're still good book club books. Like, my goal has always been, whether I was writing Southern fiction or domestic suspense, to write a book that you could pour yourself a big old cocktail and go down to the beach and have a nice day and just enjoy it. And if that's all you want, there'll be a fun plot for you. There will be shooting and kissing, but also usually within a couple of pages of each other. But also, if you want to read this for your book club, there's going to be stuff for you to talk about. Like, I do things thematically, and I write about faith and justice issues. I write about women's issues. Like, there's plenty to talk about with your book club. And I didn't want to change that just because I was changing genres. So like, if you look at Mother May I, yes, it's like a roller coaster ride. It's a heart pounding little thriller, but it's also, there's a lot to talk about in terms of class and poverty and how we pretend to be classless in this country, but we are actually rigorously structured, and we don't really like our poor people. They're not attractive, and so we incarcerate them in amazing numbers. And who gets second chances? And Hank, I'm not a person who ever got like a second chance. I got 490 million chances.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and so we're just looking at who has that kind of, all these safety nets available to them, and what happens to you if you don't. And so, like, that I didn't want to change.
Authors, I have a fantastic new service to tell you about. It's called PubSite. PubSite is a service to help you build your very own website, your home on the web, where you can promote your work and give your fans a place to connect with you. PubSite is a website platform that allows every author, regardless of budget, to have a great-looking professional website developed by the book marketing professionals at FSB Associates. PubSite is the new, easy-to-use DIY website builder developed specifically for books and authors. Whether you're an author of one book or 20, or a small publisher, PubSite allows you to build, design, and most importantly, update your website pain-free. No need to be dependent on a designer or webmaster to make a small but costly change to your website. Save the money and do it yourself. PubSite is the best platform for authors because it's a book-centric platform. PubSite was built just for authors and small publishers. Every design, feature, and layout is book-centric. They have customized designs for you to use. It's easy to build. No coding or HTML is necessary to create a stunning, professional-looking website with all the features you want. Get a custom domain name, yourname.com. It's simple to update. You can add all of your books, add a blog and a book tour, sell from any retailer, manage your email list and social media, and even do e-commerce. Build your website with a 14-day free trial Then pay just $19.99 per month, which includes hosting. And we offer packages starting at $499 to set up the website for you. Pub-site.com, the place to help authors find their home on the web.
You write Southern fiction. Especially your previous books, especially, fall definitely in that category. Your newer two books are flavored that way. Let me just put it that way. What is it that makes a book Southern fiction? Yeah, I'm from the South. I'm from the deep, deep South. You're from the South. We don't. Other authors don't throw around terms like New England fiction or Midwestern fiction, or maybe there's an LA noir is a thing, but the other regions don't hold themselves up as having their own brand of fiction. What is it that makes Southern fiction Southern, or that makes us our own genre, if you will?
I think for me, and I think for many Southern writers, it is my deep-seated ambivalence about my homeland, in that I love my homeland. I love the South. I was an expat for 7 years and longed for home in ways I did not understand that I would miss home. I also understand that when I stand in my homeland, the ground is deep burnt umber with blood and vicious history. And that history is playing out in every breath we take right now. The past is alive. The past has a pulse and a heartbeat, and it has teeth. And when you stand in the South, if you are not cognizant of these things, you have no business writing the South. Like, if you don't love it and grieve for it with a black rage-filled grief, I don't know, you don't understand where you live. Yeah. And I didn't understand where I lived. Like, the best thing I ever did was to move out of the South for 7 years and get some distance. I didn't write about the South until I left it.
Wow. That's very well put. There's a conflict that outsiders might not understand, where you can deeply love something and also deeply kick against it at the same time. It's but anyway, that's you put it way better than I ever could. Mother May I, when I got this book in the mail from your publisher a while back, and I opened it up, and I'm talking about literally on page 1, the first sentence is, "I woke up to see a witch peering in my bedroom window." And I said, okay, all right, well, Joshilyn is about to take me on an adventure. I know that from page 1.
I think I terrified my editor, because she was like, "You just changed genres. Now is this supernatural?" I'm like, no, it's a metaphor.
Yeah. I was like, is Joshilyn now writing fantasy? What is going on here?
No, she's dreaming. She's dreaming, and it invokes the least scary person on the whole planet is a little old lady. Okay. We're just real sweet. We make muffins and stuff. And if you're going to wake up and see someone in your backyard peering in your bedroom window, and I'm like, pick who it's going to be, 70-something-year-old lady? Yeah, I'll take 2.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to giant man with knife? No, none of that, please. But it's also very weird and threatening to have it. They have they live in Atlanta, and so they have a privacy fence, and it's a locked privacy fence. They do live urban. They're very affluent, but it's still urban, so there's crime. And you live in the city, if you live out in the country, you don't even bother to lock the door. Who's going to come? But the more people you live around. So I wanted it to be threatening and weird. And so she's dreaming, she's half asleep, and she looks out the window, and this woman's wearing a black shawl and a crocheted hat with a peak, and she sees a witch. And then, when she sits up, of course, the woman just pulls away from the window, just disappears. And she's not sure if she saw anybody at all, because a witch, it's
Right.
easier for her to discount it, and it's also more threatening.
When you started thinking of this book, yeah, I love the stories of the beginnings of things, because in one moment, Mother May I does not exist, nothing about it exists, and then either a character comes on the stage of your mind, or maybe you read a magazine article or a newspaper article, and the what if game starts playing. But the first sentence in this book, and this idea of her waking up and seeing this witch, and then is her mind playing tricks on her, or whatever, and you start, you kind of get in that mindset of Bree. When did that first sentence come to you? How deep into the process were you when you knew that the book needed to open that way?
That was always the opening line. It's very hard for
Was it?
me to start a book until, like, I have the characters sometimes for years before I write a book. Like, I will think of a character and just kind of tuck them away and keep working on the book I'm working on until until a cast grows. So I know the characters for years and years, but until I have that opening scene and that opening line, I'm not ready to write the book. And like, so this book, Bree is, her child is taken very quickly. Like,
Yeah.
her youngest child disappears, and it's, of course, because it's one of my books, it's not a straight up kidnap and ransom thing. There's a lot more to it. It's a revenge story. But I knew, like, I think where the book started for me before that scene was the idea of two mothers. Because very quickly, it's not a spoiler to say this, very quickly, Bree learns that the person who has Robert is this witch. It is another woman who is also a mother. And that's what I wanted to write about. I mean, obviously, there's some Stockholm syndrome at work. There's some psychology at work. But on the most basic level, the witch has taken her baby, and she wants Bree to do her a favor to help right the scales of justice in the world. And of course, Bree's own history and family and stuff plays into that. There's a reason she chose Bree. It's not random, obviously. But for me, the idea was, like, as they work on this project together, this weird empathy would grow up between them, because they are both mothers. They come from the same socioeconomic background. Bree has been really upwardly mobile. She grew up, like, not food insecure, and she had a place to live, and she had a loving mother, but the kind of family where if the car breaks down, that's going to throw your whole year. Like, it's perilous. You're just barely making it that next paycheck. You're out of groceries, and, like, so you're having rice and beans the day before that next, that's how she grew up. And where Bree has been very upwardly mobile, this woman who has come from the same background, her family has gone the other way. They didn't get the second chances that Bree got. They didn't get the breaks that Bree got. And so, like, once she realizes Bree is not this upper middle class rich man's trophy wife, socioeconomically they connect. They both connect as mothers. They understand each other under different circumstances. They would be friends, but each of them is at the heart fighting for her own child. So they're headed for a conflagration. Like, when it's your kid, you can't be like, oh, but I have empathy for you. Like, it's your child.
Right.
So that to me was what I wanted to write about, were these two women who see each other and understand each other and can even empathize for each other, but who cannot afford to be anything but relentless.
Yeah. You said that sometimes characters will stick with you for a long while, even before you write their stories. How long had Bree Cabot been with you?
Bree was very new. Bree was the last piece that slotted into place to make this book work. I thought about the witch and her family and was looking for a way to write about them. I had thought about Bree has two daughters that are 12 and 13, and they are just opposites. I had thought of them for a while. I had thought of Bree's mother, who is a person who razor wire, like really loving, really strong, really anxious person, because her life has been really hard, but she's very tough. Like, I have the whole cast, and I couldn't write the book until I found Bree's voice. And Bree is so, like, a lot of my characters, I'm not necessarily terribly interested in likable women. Like, I'm not, is somebody just real sweet? I don't care. I want to
Yeah.
write about interesting women. I don't write about women who react. I write about women who act. And it was very hard to find Bree because she genuinely is a very sweet person. It really surprised me that and she has a core of steel and she goes to war. But I would like to have lunch with her. Like, she's lovely. And that was just very unexpected. Like, a lot of times my characters are so broken in these really specific ways that cause interesting narratives. But Bree is a person who is caught up in other people's histories and other people's narratives, and she has to navigate between these two opposing, brutal narratives, and she rises to it. She's very strong, but her nature is just, I really like her. Like, I would want to be friends with her. I wouldn't say that about all my narrators, my murderous narrators necessarily.
So funny. I debated on whether to ask you or to kind of broach this topic, but you mentioned it a minute ago, and so I take that as an open door. The idea of Stockholm syndrome and how me as a reader, my relationship with Bree, if I can say that, and
Sure,
not sound weird,
absolutely.
we do form relationships with the
Hopefully.
protagonist that we read. Yeah, exactly. But was that something that you consciously were playing with? That me as a reader would be willing to go places by the end of the book that I was not willing to go in the beginning of the book.
Absolutely. I cannot thank you. Wow. That Hank, I'm so glad that shines through for you. Yes, it is. That was my intention. And I didn't know if I had done it. I'm really happy to have you. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to offer any spoilers, but absolutely, yes, there's a little bit of an empathy bait and switch going on where I want you to step into narratives where you might initially just reject that narrative and approach it the way Bree learns to, even though you cannot affirm the narrative because it's horrifying.
Right.
You end up having this weird empathy for the whole situation because there's something really truthful and powerful happening. Oh God, I'm just really moved, Hank.
Well, and that's that had to be fun to play with because we're familiar with empathy and wanting to connect with a character, and then we also think of Stockholm syndrome as this kind of trick that is played on us, or sometimes we play on ourselves, that allows us to go places that we shouldn't go most of the time, but kind of playing the idea of empathy against Stockholm syndrome is such a fun thing.
Yeah. I will admit to a little bit of Machiavellian enjoyment there.
So was this a book that you planned out? Like, did you know where it was going from the beginning?
No, I thought I did. I was wrong. I almost always think I know. I'm almost always wrong. And I've learned over the course of, I'm now in the middle of my 11th novel. I have learned that at a certain point in the book, my characters will begin doing things that make me hideously uncomfortable and that I will not want them to do. And the more I fight them, the more words I'm going to have to throw away. And the sooner I accept, like when my characters start pulling me in a direction that makes me intensely uncomfortable, that is my character. That is my actual undermined, my reptile brain at the base of my spine saying, this is what you want to write about. This is why you started to write this story. It's not something you were ready to look at directly, but you're writing this story as a way to engage with this. So follow us or you're wasting your time. And I've learned, I would love to say I just immediately, with a lamb-like docility and obedience, followed them into the dark. That's a lie. I still fight them, but I don't fight them as long or as hard. I will tell you this, like there was one narrator when I got 2/3 of the way through, and I'm a pretty buoyant person. I'm a pretty hopeful. I mean, my books are all pretty dark, but they're also funny. Like I have a sense of humor, and
Oh yeah.
I also believe in buoyancy and hope. Like I am essentially an optimist, and I do essentially love people. I don't really like those books where everybody is just a horrible person and there's no place to hang your moral hat and it's just a bunch of narcissists and egomaniacs murdering each other. Like, I don't care. Why don't all of y'all just go kill each other? I'll be over here. Like, I need like that Knives Out nurse. You know, I need a place to hang my hat. And this book is a tough book. There were some places that were just very dark and difficult, and I bogged down about 2/3 of the way through. And Marshall showed up, and Marshall was a woman, and she and Bree were very oppositional. She was another mother at the school. They were sort of becoming friends, this very upper middle class woman, and who was sort of standing in for the reader and having her eyes open to a lot of facts about the way the world is and Marshall came in. And so I just ditched her and let Marshall be a narrator. My agent was like, "You're doing what? You're adding a narrator? What? No." I was like, "Trust me." And then because she had read the first half of the manuscript, and then I sent her the whole thing with Marshall, and she was like, "Oh, yes, he had to be here, or it wouldn't even be your book, would it?" I'm like, "Yep."
I love it so much. From Never Have I Ever, which came out last year, to Mother May I, which is the brand new book we're talking about today, we talked about the subtle shift in your writing to the thrillers that you're writing now, but that your previous work had hints of this already. It was already building toward this. I'm sure. Well, you alluded to a few minutes ago that you're working on book 11 now. Is it also a thriller? Is that safe to say?
It is, yeah. It's about a former sitcom star, like not like. Kind of like the girl who played Kimmy on Full House. Like she had a little part on a big show. You probably don't remember her, but she had a stalker, you know? And so she leaves LA to come back to Georgia to get away from the stalker, who has intensified to the point that it's terrifying. So she and her daughter flee back home, only to land, like, first of all, he's following her. And second of all, she's back in her past, where she's sort of leaping out of a frying pan into a fire while the frying pan tries to beat her to death. So it's super fun.
I cannot wait to see what that turns into. It's going to be amazing, I know. Mother May I is available everywhere now in print copy, if you still like to hold paper, or Kindle edition. I know there's an audiobook also, isn't there?
Yes, I read it.
Yes. Oh, I didn't know that you did that. That's going to be so fun. I'm going to go to Audible right now and go grab it. Anyway, there's going to be links in the show notes to this episode where you can go grab Mother May I. Joshilyn, it's always so much fun catching up with you and talking books. Where can people find you online if they want to dig into all the amazing stuff that you've got going on?
JoshilynJackson.com. Although, you know, my name is spelled weird. It looks like Joshilyn. JoshilynJackson.com. And I'm Joshilyn Jackson on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Awesome. We'll put links to all those great places in the show notes to make it easy for people to find you. Joshilyn, thank you so much for taking time to come back on the show.
Thanks for having me, Hank. I really appreciate it. You're so fun.
Authors, if you're looking for a partner to help ensure that your book is the best it can possibly be, Look no further than Pico's House. Crystal and her staff make a conscious effort to be critical yet courteous. They also strive to make the business side of things run smoothly so that you can rest easy knowing that your manuscript is in capable hands. Whether you need beta reading, developmental editing, a manuscript critique, line editing, copy editing, or proofreading, Pico's House is the one-stop shop for you. Check them out today at picoshouse.com to get started. Are you looking for software that helps you bring your novel to life? Novelize is a web-based writing app which allows you to access your work on any device with a browser and an internet connection. Right from your desktop, laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Just get the novel written. Say goodbye to sticky notes. With our notebook on the side, you can keep track of all the important information you need to write your novel. We keep distractions to a minimum, help you track your progress, and encourage you to write more novels. You can even use the same notebook for your novels in a series. Outline, write, or organize your novel by switching between modes. You can write your outline notes while you're writing, and you can move scenes and chapters around anytime in the organize mode. Choose between the dark and light theme to help prevent eye strain so that you can stay immersed in your book. Novelize, the app for writers by writers.